What's up, guys? Thank you for joining me in another video. Today I'm bringing you the RoseCraft ALENTA. Let's break it down and let's see what it's all about. What's up, guys? Thanks for joining me here today. This is the Formax Scout. No, it's not a Formax Scout video. I just wanted to show you that when I came into knifedom, or whatever you want to call it, I came in loving these big, rough and tough knives. I still do. I love a big, fat belly blade, just strong as, strong as stone type of knives like this Formax Scout. It still has my heart. I still love these knives. But ever since then, with my channel, I've been trying to experiment, really trying to keep my eyes open and trying to appreciate different types of knives with different profiles and understanding that each knife has its place. Each knife has its purpose and what you're going to be using it for. Hence comes the ALENTA from RoseCraft Blades. Obviously, more of a finesse knife, okay? It's, the thin profile blade, the upswept blade, more of like a Skinner type of knife, good everyday carry, but it has its place in terms of what you can do with it and how much you can get away with it. All right, so I'm going to break up this video into three categories. First is going to be aesthetics, okay, pretty knife. Second is going to be form and comfort, basically how it carries in the hand. And finally, it's going to be how it functions, the actual functioning of the knife and what you can do with it, what you should and shouldn't do with it, what you could get away with it. The ALENTA was designed by Chase Snyder and produced by RoseCraft Blades. Now, according to the designer, the name ALENTA got its name from the Latin word lento, which actually is interpreted to curve or bend. So let's get some stats out of the way, shall we? It's got a 3.3-inch upswept blade. It's an RPM 9 steel. It's got a dual black PVD and a satin finish. It's got red anodized ambi thumb studs, ceramic ball bearing pivot, pretty much the same on all of their knives. A nice, smooth action for the most part. It is a liner lock. It's got black G10 handles with red liners and a red anodized pivot collar, and it's about 4.8 inches on the handle. And it's got a pretty cool hidden lanyard slot in which you could actually even get it on the other bars as well if you want to, but it's pretty cool. That's actually a hidden lanyard slot there. The overall length of the knife open is 8.1 inches, priced at $59.99 at the time of the airing of this video. Now, in terms of a slender knife, in my opinion, I do like the overall look of this knife. Red and black, I'm just always a sucker for red and black on any knife for the most part, but I like that upswept blade. I like the dual tone on the blade. The G10 handle, very grippy, feels pretty, comfortable in hand, not sticky, not slidey or anything like that. And those red liners, all around the G10 is just really well done. I like the fact that there's double thumb studs, which they're always thinking of the people who want thumb studs, and they pretty much put thumb studs on all their knives, which is pretty cool. And you can see there's even a little use on the blade there because I have been carrying it around every day. But overall, I do like the aesthetics of this knife. In terms of their color schemes and the overall designs, they're just really fun knives. I mean, that's pretty much what it comes down to. They're just really fun knives. Now, the deployment is pretty zippy. It's got a pretty good deployment. Detent is not the best, but what I've seen with using some RoseCraft blades and, pretty much having my hands on all their models so far, I noticed that with some use, the ceramic ball bearings need some breaking in, and then once you break them in, they kind of really deploy pretty quick. And you see the thumb studs, you can deploy from the thumb studs pretty easily. And like I said, in time, they do break in a little bit more. The detent improves and the zippiness of the deployment improves as well. Now, the handle, the reason why I love the Mohawk, and if you haven't seen a review of the Mohawk, I just released that not too long ago. Definitely check that out. Mohawk is probably my favorite knife of RoseCraft, but the length of this handle is pretty similar to the Mohawk, and that's pretty much why I like the grip of this handle. Now, if you notice the bottom of the handle has that slope that you can kind of wrap your pinky around it if you have large hands. If you do have large or extra large hands, you're going to be finding that you're going to be able to hold this knife pretty comfortable, and you have a couple different grips that you can hold this in and just have a nice secure grip. I mean, that's what I love a knife that has a nice secure grip, and it's just, yeah, it feels good in the hand, and it felt good as I was cutting with it as well. Now, with my humble demonstrations, I try to keep the demonstrations pretty consistent so you can match up as far as, what knives excel in certain demonstrations compared to others. And I found pretty fast as far as how much I can kind of push this knife. I was doing some light throws, and I started doing some more aggressive downward throws. And I noticed that the locking mechanism pretty much failed. I think probably coming up on this next one, yeah, it failed right here. So the bar just kind of failed on me there, but I was able to lock it back into place. I was able to continue to throw it down, but it just goes to show you as far as how much you can push certain knives. This is definitely not a banger. It's definitely a slicer. It's not something that you're going to be, going around pushing it too hard, because you're going to get lock failure. So I just wanted to, add that into this video just to show you that, with some hard downward throws, again, I mean, be it as it may, it didn't really, that was really the only time it failed, but it did fail where I've had other knives that are built a little bit more rugged that didn't fail. Like the Mohawk didn't fail. It's more of a rugged knife. At this point in the review, there was no wiggle, nothing really that concerned me too much. But later on in the video, as I'm doing a little bit more cutting, you'll see some changes in the blade. But it was engaging fine, it was deploying fine, there was no issues at this point. But, just to be noted that it did kind of fail, the locking mechanism failed on that one time. Now, like I said before, this knife is a slicer. It's a cutter, it's a slicer, it's not a banger. Okay, so it's, and as with all RoseCraft blades, they pretty much come sharp out of the box. Now, I've been using the RPM 9 steel for a little while now, having reviewed a couple of their knives and been using their knives from day to day and all that. RPM 9 steel is pretty good steel. It's a strong steel. I haven't had any chips whatsoever, any bends or anything like that. What I did notice about RPM 9 steel rather, there is some edge retention loss after doing my cutting demonstration, especially when you're cutting into like this. This is a 2x6 petrified wood from Home Depot. After doing the cutting demonstrations, it did lose some edge retention, and I'm not doing a ton of cutting, but enough cutting where you would see a difference if the steel has any sign of losing some edge retention. Now, losing edge retention to the point where it's not hairpin razor sharp like as it is out of the box, but it's still still a pretty good cutter. It'll still work, it'll still cut. But what I do find with this type of steel is if you throw it on a strop, it'll bring it back to its pretty much sharp, pristine condition pretty easy. So, but that is to be noted that with this steel, I have seen some edge retention loss after doing some cutting demonstrations with wood and whatever else I was doing in this video. But also even just the handle, guys, the grip, that was a comfortable grip for me. I was even taking a thumb grip right there to I was changing it around just to see what was comfortable. But as a skinner, taking that grip there, if you were to skin an animal, and you're not going to see me skinning an animal on this channel, sorry, but if you would use this as a skinner to skinning an animal or something like that, if you're into that, if you need to do that, I think this knife will handle that pretty well, because you're able to take that grip or take a couple different grips, and it stayed pretty comfortable in my hand, and I didn't feel, I felt confident kind of using it, like my hand wasn't going to slip, and it felt steady and solid in my hand as I was doing, whatever cutting I was doing in this video. So that's definitely a good thing. It's definitely a good thing that it felt comfortable and the handle works, and it, contours to your hand pretty well, and it's going to get the job done for the most part, but again, not pushing it too hard. So there's some electrical cable here with a 3 copper inlay there. Now it's not a heavy blade, so you got to put a little oomph into it, but it definitely sliced into it pretty well, and there was no damage or no chipping on the blade from cutting into the copper wire there. So that handled it pretty well. But again, you see the difference when you're using a blade that has a much heavier blade. It'll probably get through that particular test a lot quicker without putting too much force into it. Now, I use a water hose for a couple different tests: to see the slicing capability of the knife, to see how comfortable it is in your hand while you're cutting with it, while you're putting some stress on it, and to also put some stress on the locking mechanism to see if it fails. What I noticed though with this particular knife, it's a great slicer, so I actually was able to slice through that water hose pretty quick compared to other knives that I've tested with it, because it is, again, a really, like I said, a really good slicing knife. I actually did it a couple times and it handled it pretty well. It sliced pretty well. A little bit tighter there, which is a little bit harder to do, but it did a pretty good job in terms of slicing up this water hose with pretty much ease, and the locking mechanism did not fail, and it didn't stress it too much. At least I thought it didn't. So I was constantly just trying to put, like I said, I'm not torturing the knife, but I'm just trying to put some more pressure on the locking mechanism to see if, just to see how much you can push it, how much you can get away with this knife. Here's some polyurethane rope, and this is always a good test to see the slicing capability, and did a pretty good job. I mean, like I said, it's a great slicing knife, but even just with the, and I inspecting it here, no edge, you know, rolls or chips or anything like that. The point is in good shape. It was taking some nice bites. I mean, it's got a really good point to it. It was taking some nice bites into the wood. If my kids ever end up watching my videos when I'm old and gray or will not here anymore, they go remember how much Daddy loves his coffee and how much I love red and black. So anyway, guys, basic consensus here. This didn't need to be a long one. This is the ALENTA from RoseCraft Blades. Now, a couple of things with this knife. I noticed that after doing some testing, and again, I was kind of pushing this. It's a slender knife. I was kind of pushing it a little bit hard, not too hard, but a little hard in terms of the cutting, the downward throws, and all that stuff. There is a little bit of a wiggle in the blade. Now, a wiggle to the point where I feel like it's unsafe or it's unusable, no, but there's definitely a wiggle that wasn't there when I first got out of the box prior to the testing. So it did have, you know, there is a little bit of a wiggle in the blade. I'm wondering if I can tighten this up or take it apart or whatever it is, but that's just to be noted that after the testing, there is some play here. Now, what I also noticed, the locking mechanism right here, the bar, I noticed after doing some downward throws, this locking mechanism actually kind of pushed over all the way to one side. And that really just meant that I had to kind of, you know, hold the bar a little bit inwards more just to get it to kind of close up. But that probably happened because, again, I was pushing it a little hard with the downward throws. Again, why do I do these demonstrations? Why do I cut the water hose? Why do I do the downward throws and all that stuff? These are demonstrations to show you how tough of a knife it is and how rugged it is and how much, you know, what purposes you can do with this knife. Now, are you ever going to be batoning with this knife? Absolutely not. I didn't want to even attempt to baton with it because I felt like I would damage it. Could I use this knife as a great slicer, a great everyday EDC, you know, reliable everyday EDC, good blade? Absolutely. And also don't forget, you can use this knife. If you want to have a knife in your pocket, a reserve knife to go camping with it, you can slice wood, you can process wood, you can make a fire with it. Just don't expect to be batoning with it. That's pretty much it. But you can use it as a reserve knife for, you know, light camping duties. So it is a good all-around knife as long as you know its limitations. RPM 9 steel, again, you'll see in the cutting clip right here on the screen that that was doing some paper cuts after I did the wood cutting, and it's still slicing. It's not sliced, but there's definitely a noticeable difference or drop in the slicing capability or the sharpness level from when you first get it to after you do some demonstrations of cutting. So there was some edge retention loss. Not bad, still cutting, still works, still a good knife, but there is some edge retention loss. Being also that it is a thin blade, another reason why really you're not pushing this knife too hard and you're not batoning with it. It's not a batoning knife. It's not a rough use knife. So again, it's not brain surgery here. It's a slender knife. It's more of a good slender EDC carry, a good skinner, a good slicer and cutter, but it's not something you want to push too hard. So that's why I try to do these tests on every knife just to show you what knives can handle it, what knives have what, for what purpose they are made for. So again, aesthetic-wise, I do love the look of this knife. I love the red and black, the overall design of this knife in terms of the grip, in terms of this slope here that you can kind of, if you have big hands, you can kind of really move your pinky right over that and still be really comfortable. And you see how much space I still have here. But with my normal grip, I can basically use it like this, or I can even move my pinky over here and take a different grip, take this grip here, or take this, you know, backwards grip here and still have my thumb to be able to rest here. So yes, it's very comfortable handle. And again, it felt comfortable in my hand throughout all the cutting tests, but that's what this knife is for. That's what you can do with it. Again, little wiggle in the blade, nothing terrible. It's still perfectly usable, doesn't feel unsafe, but it is to be noted that when you're pushing a knife like this too hard, that's what's gonna happen. But do I like this knife? Absolutely. I do like the knife, and I do like this for what it is and for the purpose that it was made for. So Chase Snyder did a great job in designing this. Pretty good knife, and it is for a purpose. So that's all I have for you guys. Hope you enjoyed it. And as always, don't forget our veterans. I don't mention it all the time, but you know, all my videos are dedicated to awareness for veteran suicide, hashtag 22 Suicide No More. Much respect and appreciation to our veterans and to our active military. So if you are in despair, guys, there is a number in the description that can help you out. So thanks for joining me. This is Joe from JS Bladecraft. I'll see you in my next sword and knife video. Much love and respect to each and every one of you. Ciao.